All right, let's try that again. Maybe that'll work. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Speakeasy project. How about now? Any better now? Hmm. Oh, I'm good now. Okay. All right. Cool. All right. Sounds good. Um, all right. Good to see everybody this morning. Hope that you are having a fantastic day. I hope that everything is going well for you today, and that you're just having a really good week so far. And that it's been, um, not a crazy week, a fruitful week for you. Um, okay, am I good or not good? Still not good. Hmm. Well, just let me know. I thought I had it working. Okay, cool. You can hear now. That's good. Awesome. Um, oh, the joys of modern technology. It has been less than fun here lately. That's for sure. Um, I need to just break down and get this new MacBook. That's what really needs to happen. Um, yes, it can, depending on your shortcuts for sure. Moose just texted me. He said he's got me good in the shop. So if Moose can hear me, I feel good about it. Um, okay, yeah, I will. I'll check him. But yeah, good to see everybody this morning. Hope that you guys are having a fantastic morning so far. Um, I hope that everybody is doing well and's got a good week ahead. Um, School is out for a lot of places, I think, and it is a holiday weekend. So get some opportunity to kind of hopefully rest, relax, recover. Hopefully you're off tomorrow. If you're not, I hope that it's an easy day, just because everybody else is, kind of not doing a lot. So, I know a lot of people like in the service industry or retail industry are still working pretty heavy this time of year, or these kind of holidays usually bring kind of chaos for people in those spaces as well. But um, I hope that I hope that it's a good relaxing couple of days for you. Um, yeah, picked up a ton of time at your part-time job. I get that. Um, I actually took off a couple of days from work. I used some vacation time this week. It is going to be much needed. My family and I are going to go do some fun stuff for the next few days. So I'm really excited about that, and just get a chance to kind of rest and recover. And my wife took time off as well. So pretty excited about all of that for sure. Um, But such is the life of educators, right? Like, summer just means do the other job most of the time, unfortunately, for so many. And I totally get that. I mean, I certainly would hustle and grind through the summer as well because, education just doesn't pay like that. So, unfortunately, you got to kind of find some things to do to supplement the other side of it. We're going to be in Mark chapter 4 today, by the way, for those of you tracking along at home. Um, but I am glad that we get to spend this time together today. I'm glad that we get to have a few moments and just get to, dive into the words of Jesus. We get to dive into the teachings of Jesus. It's just, I don't think that feeling is ever lost on me. Um, that we get the distinct privilege of looking into the life and the teachings and the leadings of Jesus. And I think that no matter how you do this process, whether it be online, in person, I know there's so many different ways to do community like this. Um, I believe that we have done a good job about not forsaking being together. Um, and forsaking the opportunity to learn and to grow and to invest um, into the teachings of Jesus together. I think that is really important. So I'm thankful that we spend this time together each and every single week, whether it's with me or with Rick or whatever the case is, that we get to spend this time um, diving back into and refocusing on the heart and the life and the teachings of Jesus. And so um, that is not ever lost on me at all. I think it's so imperative um, that that we take time and reflect on those things as we get the opportunity to do so. And whoa, okay. I don't know what's happening here. Um, it was like I was here and then I wasn't. It like jumped back to the home screen. I don't know. I don't know why it did that, but um, anyway, whatever. Okay, Mark chapter 4. Mark chapter 4. Um, the aliens. Yeah, absolutely. They are abundant. Yeah, there's a guest. We kicked the guest out. This was so much easier when my Mac just did what it was supposed to do. Um, you know what? Doesn't even matter. We're doing it. All right. Mark chapter 4. We're going to be looking at verses 21 through 25 today. Um, just kind of the middle section of this chapter. Um, and this is Jesus. The kind of the heading of this passage is giving, not getting, is what it's called. So it says Jesus went on. Does anyone bring a lamp home and put it under a bucket or beneath the bed? Don't you put it up on the table or on the mantle? We're not keeping secrets, we're telling them. Um, we're not hiding things, we're bringing them into the open. Are you listening? Really listening? This is a question that Jesus asked right here. Are you listening? Are you really listening? Listen carefully to what I'm saying and be weary of the shrewd advice that tells you how to get ahead in the world on your own. Giving, not getting, is the way. Generosity begets generosity. Stinginess impoverishes. I believe in our day and time and in our current state of affairs and in our current culture, this is a really powerful passage of scripture. It reminds us that when you when you carry the truth and when you have that hope and when you have that healing, that you shouldn't keep it to yourself and that you certainly shouldn't put it away and allow yourself to be tempted to get things and accolades and finite possessions that only bring earthly hope and earthly healing and selfish hope and selfish healing. And I think that Jesus obviously, there's a lot of times in the context of Jesus teaching when he asks these really strong questions in the process. In other words, he says, "Are you listening? Like, are you paying attention right now? Are you actually listening?" And that's a moment when Jesus is like, "Look, I say a lot of stuff. Like, I'm sure in the back of his mind, he's like, I say a lot of stuff, but this one, you need to clock this. Like, you need to understand that this is really important. Are you listening to what I'm saying?" How many times is, those of us who are parents or even just like in the professional setting, like, for those of you who are not parents, like, how often have you been like, "Hey, are you actually listening to what I'm saying? Or do you hear what I'm saying?" Right? Sometimes we probably don't say it as aggressively or as abruptly as Jesus did here. Maybe with our kids we do. We're like, "Are you listening to what I'm telling you?" And it's not a bad faith question. It's a good faith question because what I'm really conveying to you when I ask that question is this is really important and I need you to lock in. I need you to understand what I'm telling you right now. Are you listening? Because this is highly important. And then he reemphasizes. He goes, "Are you listening to this? Are you really listening? Listen carefully." So it's not like Jesus was like, "Hey, are you listening?" and then just kind of kept going. He's like, "Are you really listening to me? Like, are you really actually tuned in? Because you need to listen carefully here." I think that when Jesus lays out these kinds of things inside of the context of his teaching, it's like you need to understand that this is something that maybe you should put away. Maybe you should have, and maybe you should be able to recall, and maybe you realize the importance of it. I think that was the same thing he was trying to express to the disciples and to the people following him here while he's giving this teaching and while he's giving this encouragement, because he's like, "Look, I understand we've talked about a lot of things. I understand I've given you a lot of information. I understand there's a lot of things happening here. But what I'm telling you right now, you need to listen carefully to this part." And he follows that up with something really, really fascinating. He says, "Are you listening? Listen careful to what I'm saying and be weary and wary of shrewd advice that tells you to get ahead." What Jesus is really diving into here is he's saying, like, look, anything that tells you that you should be taking this advice that allows you to get ahead is bad advice that pushes you to be ahead, to get monetary gain, to get um, personal gain, to get these things that are going to push you ahead in kind of worldly status and stature, in, power and corruption, any of these things that are going to push you ahead in those things, you need to stop. And that information is going to be coming from a lot of different angles and a lot of different places. And so, what Jesus is saying here is he's saying, be weary of that. Don't listen to it. And then he follows it up with a very easy and basic, simple sentence. 6 words: giving, not getting, is the way. Giving, not getting, is the way. What Jesus is really doing here is he's pushing back on the religious establishment of the day. He's pushing back on religion in general of the day, and he's saying, look, you need to understand that life and faith and love is about giving of yourself. He's saying they have told you over and over and over that it is about what you can receive and what you can get and what you can have. But what I'm telling you is true faith is about giving of yourself, what you can give, how you can encourage, how you can uplift, how you can challenge. And he goes on to give this reason. He says, generosity begets generosity. There's something really important and impactful about that this morning, friends. When you give of yourself, it creates a culture of giving. Let me say that again for those of you in the back. Generosity begets generosity. In other words, giving breeds a culture of giving. Pouring out breeds a culture of pouring out. And when we surround ourselves in a culture of pouring out, when we surround ourselves with people that are willing to pour of themselves into the others around them, when we create a community that is willing to pour out, then what inevitably happens is, yes, we will be pouring out, but our needs to be poured into will be met because we are creating a community and a culture around us that breeds that very mentality. And therefore, what we are giving and what we are pouring will be coming back to us because we have surrounded ourselves with people of the same mindset. So it goes back to those age old things, right? The be the change you want to see. And, what is it? The golden rule, right? Like, treat others the way that you want to be treated. There's a reason that those things are what they are. And the reason that, um, I believe that it was Gandhi that said, be the change that you want to see, right? The golden rule has been a thing forever. There's a reason that those things are like culturally relevant. There's a reason that we use those phrases. There's a reason that those things always seem to catch traction. And it boils all the way back to what Jesus is saying here. He's saying generosity creates more generosity. So if you treat other people well, then you will begin to see yourself treated better. If you begin to invest the change that you want to see into your communities and into the culture around you, you will begin to be a recipient of that change as well. But it takes the first step of being that person. When you create a selfish and self centered culture, you will breed a selfish and self centered culture. And therefore, you will never receive anything back other than what you can gain for yourself. You can only fill your hand with as much as you can grab. And I'm going to tell you right now, you don't have much to grab. Because the things that you create to put in your hand are like sand. They will slip through your fingers. But the ways and the places that other people invest in you in holy and righteous ways, the way that God invests back in us with his word and his goodness and his teachings through his son Jesus, those things are forever. Those are like rocks. And they will fill our hands so full that we can't hold them anymore because it's so heavy. So if you want to continue to build your house on sand, if you want to continue to fill your hand and your earthly well-being with sand, that's fine. Just know it's not going to last, and know it's not going to stay, and know that you're not going to receive it back from any other direction. Understand that you can only carry so much, and it's only going to last so long. But the beauty of the gospel is, the beauty of the teachings of Jesus are, the beauty of generosity and kindness and humility and patience. The beauty of those things is that it is something that will long outlast the things that we could give ourselves. And now I'm not telling you this morning to be generous and kind just to receive generosity and kindness, but it is a symptom of good generosity. It is a reaction. We think about basic principles of science. In this community, we appreciate science. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction, right? So everything that we put into our lives and everything we put back into our community has a reaction. So what we give and the way that we give of ourselves and the way that we pour out of ourselves ultimately has a reaction of coming back to us. Now, again, I'm not saying this is why we are kind. I'm not saying this is why we show humility. I'm not saying this is why we pour into others. But what I am saying is when you create a culture of those things, what happens is you surround yourself with that culture, and therefore that culture and that community pours back into you. And it becomes an infinite cycle. I also think it's really interesting here at the end of this passage in verse 25, Jesus doesn't say stinginess begets stinginess. He makes that last sentence so much more simple than that. He makes that last piece of this teaching so much more broken down than that. It would have been really easy for Jesus, and he teaches this way a lot of times, to say generosity begets generosity, but stinginess begets stinginess. That sounds like a Jesus phrase, but that is not what he said here. And sure, while that's true, I think he wanted to really get to the meat and the potatoes, the heart of the issue. So he finishes this with a two-word sentence: stinginess impoverishes. End of the teaching. That is the end of this chunk, this passage of scripture. Verses 21 through 25. They are clumped together under this idea of giving, not getting. And Jesus finishes this passage with stinginess impoverishes. Not that it begets more stinginess, not that it creates a culture of stinginess, not that stinginess is sinful. He doesn't say any of that. He just breaks it down really, really simply. Stinginess impoverishes. In other words, it creates poverty. And that doesn't just mean physical and financial poverty. It can. But, we don't do the prosperity gospel here. So I'm not saying be kind to others so you can get $1 million in a brand new car and a brand new house. Don't think that's how it works. Ask Jesus, who scripture very clearly says had no place to lay his head. Foxes had their holes, birds of the air have their nests, but the Son of Man had no place to lay his head. So I don't think it comes back to us in a physical or financial way. I think what Jesus is more alluding to here when he talks about poverty is emotional and spiritual and cultural poverty. He says stinginess impoverishes. It will make you poor. It will make you poor. It will make you poor spiritually. It will make you poor emotionally. It will make your community poor. And it will make you poor because none of you will ever receive anything good that lasts if you are stingy. If you are a keeper and a receiver and a getter, you are creating a culture of poverty. Dang. Sit with that for a second. Because it's really easy for us, and friends, this is going to be a challenge, and this is a challenge for me too, okay? And this is why I felt like that this was so relevant to me today. There are so many times when we want to match hate and bigotry and anger and frustration with equal energy. Because every action has a reaction. But what we have to begin to do is we have to train ourselves to let the reaction be from the heart of Jesus, not from the heart of the people. So when people's actions cause a reaction, is the energy from them the thing that we transfer back? To kind of use that science analogy, right? Or do we take the energy that we get from the teachings and the love and the goodness of a great divine and transfer that back? Because one will grow the heart and the depth and the growth of generosity, and one will impoverish. And it will impoverish us, and it will impoverish those around us. It will make our communities and it will make our culture morally, emotionally, and spiritually poor. And the reason I think that Jesus uses the word impoverishes here is because when the community runs out of things to give to one another, when there is no way to pool community resources anymore, we have a problem. That is the place where that's the place where people start eating berries that they're not sure that they should eat. That's that's the place where people start taking advantage of one another and stealing and conniving and manipulating. These are the places where sin and hate and selfishness thrive. Because what we're doing is we are creating a space that will no longer allow us to live off the land, so to speak. So Jesus is saying, look, be weary of this shrewd advice that tells you to get ahead. Be weary and wary of this shrewd advice that tells you that you should be selfish and self-centered and self-gratifying. Beware of those things. because generosity creates a cycle and a culture of generosity. I want to say this is kind of a last point. I think the reason that Jesus says that generosity begets generosity is because it's this concept of something that continues. It is a continuous cycle, and you create a culture of this continuous cycle that it just continues to recycle itself. But once you hit that place of poverty, once you allow stinginess to take over and take hold, and once you hit that place of spiritual, moral, and emotional poverty, the cycle only lasts so long before everything is dead. So it may repeat for a moment, but eventually it will be the death of everything that's a part of it. It'll destroy everything around us. And so there's no need to call it a cycle or to say that it begets this and it continues. There's no need for it. What Jesus is saying is once you allow stinginess to become the culture, just give it a minute because everything will wither and die. Because there is no living water being poured back in. There is no life being poured back in. There is no light being shown on it. There's nothing good. There's nothing redeemable. There's nothing of value there anymore. It will become a barren wasteland. And you will starve. And the people around you will starve. So there's no reason for stinginess and selfishness to beget stinginess and selfishness because it only needs to do that one or two cycles before everything is dead. So Jesus is saying, look, I want in John 10, he says, I want to give you life, but I want to give you life more abundant. And stinginess and selfishness is not life more abundant, and it is not life at all, friends. So when we want to meet people's energy with that stinginess and selfishness, when we want to meet people's energy with that anger and frustration and rage, when we want to meet that energy and match that energy, we have to remember that it will only bring death. This is why Jesus says, look, in John 3, he says, I'm the light of the world, right? So here in Mark chapter 4, he says, when you have a lamp, you set it on the table. We don't keep secrets here. When we know what brings love and hope and healing and peace, we don't set that underneath a blanket. We put that on the mantle. We let everybody see it. So be bold in the things that you know. Be bold in the things that you believe. Be bold in the truth that love is good. Love is perfect. Humility is good. Humility is perfect. Grace and compassion and empathy. There is no such thing as toxic empathy. That peace is good. And when we carry that light, knowing those things to be true, we set it out in the open so that everyone can see. And this is why Jesus immediately, in between those two thoughts, hits us with, are you really listening? Are you really paying attention? Because you need to hear this. Because what Jesus is really saying is this is a matter of life and death. That's why Jesus was so clear in making sure that those who are around him, and even now, while we have these words in front of us, we're listening well to the end of this passage because he's saying this is a matter of life and death. You may think this is about, hey, we should be kind to each other. We should be compassionate to each other. Yeah, we've heard that 1,000 times, Jesus. Like you talk to us about showing grace and kindness and love to people, the less than, the least of these. Like you talk about being humble all the time. Okay, we got it. Yeah, we've heard it. We've heard it all 100 times. But Jesus is like, look, what I'm telling you is that it is not only important for you to be kind and humble and be giving of your heart and your spirit. It is, it is a matter of life and death that you respond in life this way, that you respond to people this way, that you give this way. And even when people are giving hate and vitriol and anger and malice, when they are responding in that way, you continue to respond with humility and grace. You continue to respond with hope and healing. You continue to respond with the light that you carry. Don't stick it under a blanket. Don't hide it under a mat. Don't stick it under in a hole. Understand that when you carry the truth, you carry it out in public. You carry it out for real. You set it in the most prominent place in your house and you allow it to illuminate everything going on in your spiritual world because are you really listening? Are you listening? Kindness, humility, and generosity breed life. Selfishness, self-centeredness, and stinginess breed death. So Jesus was like, look, y'all need to pay really close attention here because what I'm about to tell you is the difference in life and death, in hope and hopelessness. It is the difference between light and darkness. So set the light on the mantle. Don't put it under a bucket. Give without the need to receive. Give when others don't deserve. That's the hard part. That's the part that struck me. Give when other people don't deserve to receive, when they are not giving, when they are refusing to give. Give to them. Because generosity breeds life, stinginess breeds death. All right. That's what I got for you this morning, friends. Glad that we had the opportunity to spend this time together. I ended up going live off my phone this morning, but I did get the cable to put my nice Shure microphone into the phone. So we can get all that popping and cracking that I've been noticing in the lives. Um, we'll get the problem solved. We're working diligently. But all of that said, I did use actual physical Bible this morning. So that was fun. Um, also, I did get a physical copy of the message, like the whole thing, and it is awesome. So I don't use it a ton just because, obviously digital Bibles are the way of the future, right? Or the way of now. And honestly, this is the Bible that I probably use the most. I also have another one down there that, like, I used for years and years. That looks like it's been drugged through the mud. But this is the one I use the most. But the reason that I use this one the most is because it has like wedding service stuff in the back, so I constantly use that. So it stays on that, and it stays on 1 Corinthians 13. um, and it looks nice when you're standing up in front of people and doing a wedding. Um, I feel like people are weird if the pastor didn't show up with like a big black Bible. Like I feel like that's like a requirement for the role. um, yeah, I do. I love physical copies, and I have a handful. I think that some of my favorites are from grandparents. I have my pops's Bible, which is my dad's dad. I also have a lady in high school that we would go visit with with our leadership team in high school. We went and saw her, and like even students like for decades before us went and visited with her. Um, anyway, she passed away my senior year, and it was, I mean, it was very devastating community wise. Like she was well into her 90s, but she had impacted so many students for so long, as we had gone and sat with her, and just full of knowledge and hope. Anyway, she passed away my senior year. Her family asked me to speak at the funeral, and gave me her Bible. So I love Bibles like that. I love Bibles like that. So I have my grandpa's Bible. I have Granny Madge's Bible, which is who I was just talking about, and then I have the first Bible that I ever got as a gift from my papa, which was my other grandpa, and he had it. Um, yeah, papa's number one put on here, and so I've had this one since my birthday in 1994. So math, I think it was six. Yeah, I would have turned six that year. Anyway, pretty beautiful. But those are kind of the Bibles that hold the physical Bibles that kind of hold my heart at this point. Yeah, so these are all actually kind of different. I think there's a New King James, there's an NIV. Hmm. So that one, the one I was just talking about, that one's New King James. The one that I use for like weddings and funerals and stuff is an ESV. Oh, Granny Madge's Bible was an NLT, New Living Translation. Um, and I think smacking this microphone stand around. Sorry. Um, this one also. Oh, it is a King James Study Bible. So old school. I also have. Also have the Pirate Bible, but that's for me. All right. Well, that was a fun trip down Bible Lane. All right. Love y'all. Love God, love people passionately. This was a lot of fun this morning. I hope that you have a fantastic week. Enjoy the holiday weekend. And we will see you next week.